What's happening, everybody? John Hendricks here for Boot Crew Media, coming at you with another episode of The Drive, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. It's never a dull moment covering the New Orleans Saints. Let me just tell you that. We thought last week was crazy with the Sean Payton bomb, right, on Tuesday, and then all these types of things. But according to an interesting Tuesday evening reports by NFL Network's Ian Rappaport and New Orleans Football's Nick Underhill, Derek Carr has received permission from the Raiders to visit the Saints, which that interview or that visit is supposed to take place on Wednesday. Huge development, but it's also important to remember there is nothing imminent. This is kind of doing the due diligence, right? But it's still a huge type of development here if you're a Saints fan, because we talked about it here. I talked about it with you guys just a couple of days ago, talking about the buzz and playing out the different scenarios for New Orleans and just kind of those types of things and why Derek Carr could make sense for, the Saints and such. But very interesting development. He's almost 32. And reason why this is so important is you got 3 days after the Super Bowl, timing wise, that if he's on the roster for the Raiders 3 days after Super Bowl, he's going to be due $40 plus million. I think it's $40.3 million in guarantees over the next 2 years if the Raiders don't trade or release him. So real interesting that this pops, and it's a lot of things developing and happening with the Saints because of the Sean Payton stuff. Coaches getting poached, Zach Strief leaving, Ronald Curry's being interviewed, Declan Doyle's also being interviewed. I mean, it's a really interesting time right now for the Saints and where they're going. Again, Derek Carr, is that a good answer for the Saints? I really do think that's a good answer. This team was aggressive in their approach for Deshaun Watson last offseason. Didn't pan out, obviously, like we said, it's for the best. But, here it's just one of those things where Carr's got a lot more to prove still. There are some concerns, I think, not in his game particularly, just overall with the roster for New Orleans. Losing Zach Strief is huge because Trevor Penning is a guy that's going to take the next leap, I feel like, next year. Maybe they move on from Andres Pete, kick somebody like James Hurst on the inside, but Strief was huge for Penning's development. Now you don't have that in the building, so I'm really interested because Doug Marrone did a really good job with Cesar Ruiz. But going back to Carr, again, am concerned is the compensation portion, if that comes, because the Saints could just be saying, hey, we're in for a visit. Carr obviously has the say-so on where he wants to go, rekindle some stuff with Dennis Allen. Maybe it's one of those things where, hey, if the Raiders release you, you're number one on our priority list. Let's talk turkey. Let's figure out what we got to do to make you our next quarterback. But, even going back to what Jeff Ireland had mentioned last week at the Senior Bowl, is just they got to find this quarterback. And, it was interesting to bring up the philosophy of drafting one. And again, I think if your guy's there at 29, you got to go pull the trigger. Maybe you have him at 40, but, they kind of, Ireland likes the dual threat quarterback, but again, he cited like picking Drew Brees' brain, saying, accuracy, processing speed, getting the ball out were some of the things and traits that he really liked, but it has to be a consensus within the organization of who they like as far as the quarterback goes and such. And so, look, I like Carr and the way he plays. Guys very invested in what he does. I think that was clear in Las Vegas. You saw some of the press conferences. The guy he goes on 100, and he doesn't leave anything out. And look, Saints got a firsthand look at him this year. It didn't go that well. And, they got shut out with him and Devontae Adams and such. So, and that's interesting too. If Adams was the reason that he went to Las Vegas, right? And so very big development, very interesting development. Again, everybody's got to remember, nothing's imminent, nothing's happening. This is due diligence. The Saints are going to be the team that steps up to the plate. And look, again, this division is garbage. They don't need a lot, but it is interesting because Carolina's made some moves. I think Carolina's got some intrigue to it. Atlanta's in a space where maybe they can figure things out. Tampa probably is going to be in the gutter this year, post Tom Brady and such. But, look, this is not a hard division to take advantage of and try to win. The Saints have got to put themselves in a position there. I think it starts with the quarterback spot. They're going to have to figure out the defensive line. They're going to have to upgrade talent at running back. They're going to have to get better weapons on the wide receiver front, more than just Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. They're going to have to figure things out with some of their aging players. They can get under the cap, which is they're over, I think 52 million plus is what they're over projected at least. So money's never an issue for the New Orleans Saints. They do want to work in trying to get back more in line with the cap, something Mickey Loomis had talked about at his end of the year press conference. So big development. Derek Carr reportedly visiting the Saints on Wednesday. The main thing is that he has permission to do it. There is a no trade clause right now that he can waive. He has to say where he wants to go, rekindle some things with Dennis Allen, a guy who believed in him, took a chance on him in 2014 as a rookie. And then obviously the rest is history, even though Allen did get fired. So stay tuned for more development on it. Again, February 13th, just a few days after the Super Bowl, or excuse me, the 3 days after Super Bowl. Check me on that date. But 3 days after the Super Bowl is what's the big thing to pay attention here, because Carr is going to have to simply be released or traded by the Raiders, or he's going to be due $40+ million in guarantees over the next 2 years. May make some things interesting. But that's it for today's Drive episode. Thanks again to DraftKings Sportsbook for producing today's show. Don't forget to use that code BOOT and get your promo money. Thanks, guys. John Hendricks signing out.